This video is going to be going over how you and your B2B company can find message market fit and start generating pipeline through outbound as quickly as humanly possible. My name is Ryan Bryden. I run an outbound agency and I help run a capital raising company as well. We have done lots of work in helping grow sales pipelines on the B2B side. I'm just scrolling through a few of the companies that we've helped here. And then we've also helped companies in the healthcare space raise capital all through outbound. That's kind of been our bread and butter. Am I the absolute very best at cold email? No, but would like to think that I'm all right. And so I want to share something that I've been doing a lot of internal thinking, right, and trying to improve our processes as best and as fast as we can. Because the problem that I've been seeing with campaigns that we've run internally and that I just kind of see in general is that a lot of B2B companies will either one, not have a proper outbound motion in place, or two, not know the exact types of messaging that work on cold traffic. So, they'll have a product or service to sell, but they're completely unaware of what that exact messaging looks like to speak to their market most effectively. Now, the term message market fit, I did not come up with that. I've heard that from my friend Kellen Casebeer. Shout out to him. I'm sure a lot of other people talk about it as well. It's not my idea, but message market fit, what that means is basically the message that you can present to cold traffic that gets them interested in your offer and your product and your service in some way. Now, a lack of this, and this is what I find a lot of companies that either come to us for help or just that I see in general deal with, is inconsistent sales pipelines, lack of clarity in their marketing channels, or a reliance on inbound or referrals for signing new deals, for signing new clients, for acquiring customers, right? So after working with 25 plus B2B companies, this is one of the most important areas of a company that we help with. So what is going to be below, and this will be a long video, is a complete breakdown of how you can do this. This is quite literally like the exact SOP that we just rolled out internally. I just want to show you exactly how we're doing this so that you can find message market fit as fast as possible, limit your spend, and build a reliable outbound motion for your company that can work on cold traffic. So let's dive right into this. The number one thing that we're going to start off with here is mapping your market segment. So what I mean by this is that every company, they have an ICP of some sort that they sell product or services to, right? Now, the problem with this is that within a company's main ICP is a micro ICP of about, I said 5 to 20, it might be a bit less, it could be a bit more, of smaller personas that act and respond differently to different messaging. So I went into GPT and I was like, give me just a random ICP. So it said mid-size to enterprise logistics and supply chain companies that rely on AI-powered route optimization and fleet tracking. Okay, great, right? Completely random. But within that, right, we could be reaching out to medical transport providers, cold chain logistics for pharmaceuticals, high value cargo transporters, food and beverage distributors, municipal waste, heavy equipment. Like these are all different subsegments within our main ICP that are going to respond differently to different messaging. Like what we say to, and I think I said this here, is I was like, the same email to somebody who's a medical transport provider is likely not going to work to somebody who does food and beverage, right? Like these are two different things, even though they're within our same ICP. And now what we try to do with that is go, okay, when we're working with a company, how can we map out the entire ICP so that we can test out different messaging for all of these groups right here? Now, something that I'm going to refer back to a lot in this is that we use a lot of AI to help us with this, mainly because I can't think of, all of these micro ICPs. And even though this might be your industry, this might be the types of groups that you work with, I like my chances of mapping that out better by talking to a robot than just trying to get that off of the top of my head. So I said, it doesn't matter how well you know your market, your customer, like outbound is at the point where you should be utilizing LLMs as much as you can in your research, especially in your research, or you're going to be going too slow. So this is the first thing. We're mapping our market segments. We're breaking them down into multiple ICPs that exist within that. Now, Next point is going to be on creating custom messaging for each persona. So this is the part where we're going to be using AI the most. More specifically, a bit of a mix between GPT-4o and Claude. I found all versions of Claude fine, so I don't think it matters. And so what we're going to ask it to come up with is basically two things here. So the first part is going into campaign strategy. So when we're thinking about, okay, let's use our same example here of logistics and supply chain companies, right? It's like, okay, I'm not an expert in that industry, but what are some typical pain points that they go through on their day to day? And like, I'm not asking for like vague or like, I want deep market insights on what these people are actually going through on a day to day and the problems that they are dealing with. That's what we use GPT-4o for. And then what we do is and I explain it all in this video here that'll probably be coming out in a different video on YouTube here. Hopefully that's where you're seeing this. But basically what we do is we take GPT-4o and we take a company's information and get it to give us the most detailed breakdown that we can of a company and a full understanding of how our product and service, or whatever client you're doing this for, can relate directly to these pain points that we've just outlined, right? And then what we do is we take that information in GPT, we bring that into Claude, and we're like, hey, okay, here are the main problems. Here's everything that this market segment is dealing with. Here's our company. Here's the benefits that we provide. How can we turn this into sales messaging? How can we turn this into copy that's going to resonate with an audience like this? And that's what this entire video is. I did it for the most random B2B industry. So, I mean, this document is going to be in the description. Would highly recommend checking that out. But I go through how to do that exact process, and that's how we turn, these big ideas, these pain points, these market research, and we turn it into sales copy, right? The next part of this process is going to do with actually launching these campaigns, right? So we've done a lot of planning, we've done a lot of thinking. It's like, okay, now let's actually get direct feedback from the market, right? So the most efficient way to act on this information is to rapidly create and launch outbound campaigns targeting the different market segments that we just have created and researched. For the purpose of this, I'm just going to skip right through things like, setting up inboxes, connecting to a sequencer, how to build lists, how to enrich data, all that stuff, just because I want to talk about kind of the overall strategy here rather than how to use Smart Lead or something like that. So we're going to skip past this. But getting into launching campaigns, right? And this is the biggest thing that I've found recently that we didn't have in place for a long time. And I'm starting to realize that this is one of the biggest mistakes that we made. And I say we as in the companies that I run here. But the most important idea that you should keep in mind when launching these kind of campaigns is the speed on which you make changes on, right? So I put a post out on LinkedIn like a week or so ago, and it was just talking about how there is likely very little change between your campaigns on day like 1 to 5 and then on day 30, right? So meaning, generally speaking, the results that you see early on in a campaign are usually a strong indicator on future success in that campaign. Now, the problems that we were making is that we would take way too long to say, hey, you know what? This campaign is not a winner. Let's go back to the drawing board and come up with something new. Like, we weren't doing that enough. And because of that, we were letting these campaigns that maybe in the first week, in the first 2 weeks, weren't showing much promise, just drag out for too long, instead of saying, you know what, this isn't working, scrap that, back to the drawing board. And so what we're seeing now, what we're trying to do is be way more snappy and how fast we're coming up with new campaign ideas and putting them in action, getting data, and then making actions on that, right? So now what we're doing is, I think the deadline for seeing how a campaign can do can honestly be judged in probably about 3 to 4 days, depending on how much volume you are sending as well. So we wanted to break this down into 2 main things. Keep it dead simple, right? The first is going to just be reply rate. I think that for outbound campaigns, the minimum that your reply rate can be is 1.5%. Okay. That's not good by any means, but there's some industries I get it, they get messaged a lot. If it's lower than this after about 3 days, stop the campaign, run inbox placement tests, redo the copy. I'll touch on this more, but that's the first benchmark of like it must be above this, right? The next thing that we're going to look at is positive reply rate, which is we want a minimum of 1 to 3 leads from anywhere between like 1,500 to 2,500 emails sent. If it's lower than this, stop the campaign, back to the drawing board with new copy angles or test a new market segment, right? This is actually wrong. This is not a benchmark. This is the minimum for what you should be seeing in your campaign. Now, the more messages that you send, the faster that you do this, the faster that you see results. The faster that you see results, the faster that you can find better messaging. And obviously the end goal is the faster that you can start building pipeline, right? So we are launching campaigns with these two kind of main pillars in mind here. And they must meet these two requirements after about maximum 2,500 emails. If they don't, back to the drawing board. And we can test out those different market segments that I was touching on way up here in part one, right? So that's the focus that we're really trying to implement into this process, and kind of what we're thinking. So finally, how do we make changes to these campaigns? Right? I know I've been talking a lot, but like if you're asking for actionable, like, okay, Ryan, this sounds cool, but like, how do I actually do this? I don't really know, right? So I touched on this, but before I actually get into talking about how to make changes on a few things, I kind of want to reiterate why these are the two pillars. So first being deliverability and two being like the offer or how many leads are actually being generated. So first of all, with deliverability, right? The thing with this is it's dead simple. If the email is not delivering, the copy doesn't matter. The offer doesn't matter. This doesn't matter. Nothing else matters if it's not seen. You're sending a message into the void that's never being seen by a human being, and it just doesn't matter, right? So it's like when we look at the first place that we need to audit a campaign, it at least needs to be in front of people's eyeballs, right? And so that's kind of the main thinking from our end of like, okay, if it's not being seen, nothing else matters. So this has to be fixed first, right? So that's our thinking for that. Second is, actual leads generated. Now, if we're sure people are seeing the message, but they're just not interested, I think that's honestly a really good spot to be in, because this means all we have to do is change the offer, the way that it's presented to make people interested in it. Now, again, a lot easier said than done, but excuse me. With this, we should be split testing the offer and the style of the email to make sure that it's reaching, like, I would love a 10% positive reply rate. I think that's manageable enough. This is more for kind of internal cases, but like you should have a rough sense after about 2,500 emails maximum of, do people have demand for this? Is there general market interest for this? And if not, boom, let's go on to a different, segment that we created in part one there. Now, a lot of what I've been saying here is a lot easier said than done. I totally get that. So here are two questions that I kind of thought of, like, hey, this would be something that somebody would ask directly on, how do I actually do this, right? Because this is a lot of frameworks and like thinking, but how do I come up with different ways of presenting my offer? If I send 2,500 emails, nobody's interested, what do I do? Like, I don't think there's that many ways to describe my offer. The best way that I would say this is get a guy to do it for you. And the reason for this is, and what we're actually doing right now is we are creating a custom bot in Claude that has a knowledge base of all of our best campaigns we've ever run. I spent like an hour and I just took all the copy, all of the like targeting notes and strategy, and I put it into a doc and I fed that to Claude. So the whole point of using AI for ideation is that you want to get it, excuse me, to think about things that you wouldn't have thought of, right? So a great example, you can upload the current scripts that you are trying, that you've sent 2,500 emails, you have 0 leads. Okay. You upload that script, you upload that offer, you tell it what you're selling, and then you tell Claude who you're trying to sell it to, and then ask it to give you 15 different ways to position the offer. And I guarantee you that it that it will. Some might suck, but it will give you the 15 ways. Take your 5 favorite and then ask it to give you 5 more ways to do so. And now you have at least 10 to 30 new ways to present your offer, to market your offer. The whole point about using AI is it's going to think about and come up with ideas that you wouldn't have thought of yourself. And the only way to truly understand if that's going to work or not is by putting it into the market, is by asking people, right? That's that, I guess, main thing that we're trying to keep in mind with a process like this is that we need to put it in front of people. We need to keep churning and spitting out campaigns, because there might be an angle that, or a part about your offer, about your service that you've completely dismissed, that could be the absolute killer that people are interested in, and you don't know unless it's tested in your market, right? So that's kind of how you can think about coming up with new ways of presenting your offer to generate leads. The other side of things is, hey, if my deliverability sucks, right? Let's say after a few days, your reply rate's like under 1%. That's not good, right? How do I make changes to this? Like, what do I do? If your campaign, if this is one of the first few campaigns that you've launched, it shouldn't be an inbox thing. That would be the first place that I would check, would be try to get new inboxes, whether you're using a provider or whoever you're doing, ask to get that swapped out. If it's the actual copy, the easiest way that you can do this is going to be asking AI to do this for you. So you can go into GPT, you can go into Claude, and you can just say, hey, please remove all spam words from this copy, upload your copy. Typical stuff that we see a lot that we've had stuff flagged for is like dollar signs, don't do. The word free or like no cost, you don't want to do that either. Something that you can keep in mind for copy, that the longer your email, the higher your likelihood that it does get triggered by spam. So if you do want to keep things like super simple, you don't want to play the whole spam game and, oh, this word might be blah, blah, blah. Just keep your email really short. That's honestly the best way that you can. You won't get rid of the entire spam problem, but it should give you the best chance to do so if you don't want to think about having one singular word that's going to ruin your entire message. Something that I've heard Eric Nowoswowski talk about too is that when writing copy, something that you can think about is this, right? So if you said like, hey, what would somebody who is a spammer say for an offer like this? And how can I just completely avoid that, right? And so that's just kind of good thinking for you to try to write copy and present an offer that does not come across as what a typical quote unquote spammer would do. And so those are, again, solving for these 2 main pillars that we want to be testing in our campaigns as fast as humanly possible. I know that this was a lot of information, but that is our entire internal process for how we are testing this for new clients. Once again, doing this will allow you to divide your market into segments to find winning angles. You'll save time, you'll save costs, you'll save resources, marketing spend, and more by acting fast on relevant data. And finally, you'll find what your customers actually like about your product and service. And you can take that messaging, you can take that information and scale it across whatever, marketing channels that you want to. Now, if you don't want to carry out this process by yourself, if you go, Ryan, this is holy shit, this is way too much, and you want our help to 2 to 5x your pipeline in the next quarter, you can feel free to book a call here at Breakout to learn a bit more about what we do. And if you just want more strategies, tips, and insights on how to grow your pipeline for your B2B company, I have a newsletter. I write like 3 times per week, sharing a lot of stuff that I don't put on social media. But I hope this video was valuable. I wanted to give away exactly what we've been thinking recently. And I really hope this is helpful for anybody who is attempting to try this out. So thank you so much for checking this out. Drop a like and subscribe if you found any value in this, and I appreciate it. Have a good day.